Okay, everyone who's watching, and also my beautiful co-host here, welcome back for another conversation, live conversation. We're live on Facebook and LinkedIn of Notes on Conscious Leadership. My name's Taylor Coburn, and I've created this show to bring some amazing insights and perspective shifts, all about personal leadership, conscious leadership. That was a lot of words, but it's about everyday conscious leadership. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Welcome back again, Mark, Stanley, Mahir. Thank you for coming and being a part of this with me. Um, yeah, today I'm pretty excited, especially because we have an audience member who actually asked us a question after last week's episode. Yeah,
Okay.
Martina Pribish, thank you for your question. And yeah, that's how I'd like to start us off today, is to actually answer Martina's questions. We got it's a compound question. She's asked us, how did you arrive at the path of conscious leadership? How do you define conscious? And tell me more about the horses, please.
I don't have any horses, so I think that's a question for
Yeah,
Mark.
I think that starts with you, Mark. I don't have any here at the house right now.
Well, okay. I guess it's important to start with kind of, I like that she wants a definition. I always like to start with a definition as well. So, what is conscious leadership? At ECL, Everyday Conscious Leadership, we believe that everybody is a leader, at least potentially. Everybody has an opportunity to either lead or follow in whatever situation they're in. Choosing to follow doesn't make you subservient. If you join the person that's leading in their end result, then you're in service to them getting their end result. That means you make independent decisions, conscious, independent decisions that serve the greater good, that bring the energy to the best outcome for everybody. If you're leading, then that's your job as well, to serve the greater good, to bring the outcome to the best result for everybody. And your job is to direct that energy consciously. So when we say what is conscious leadership, it's making decisions based on what will serve as opposed to based on your thoughts and feelings, right? Yeah. So when people start to lead, or even when they're in a following situation, they're a team situation, tensions can get high, and high stress brings out the worst in people. Because they get caught up in their thoughts and feelings. When people get caught up in their thoughts and feelings, they make bad decisions, and certainly can make very selfish decisions that will benefit them, but not necessarily everybody, and doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're going to bring the energy to the best outcome for all. So to me, what is conscious leadership? That's making decisions based from your intuition, from your connection to heart, and from your ability to see the big picture and what will serve everybody. Now, we'll get to the horses. Well, I'll talk about the horses in a little bit, but I will say that what we do here in Asheville is we not only do we teach this in workshop form, but we also teach it here at the ranch. At the Mist Path Sanctuary, where we rehab horses, and then put them into, if some of them, if they can go into the program, and help to teach humans to be better versions of themselves. And more about the horses later.
Awesome. Does anyone want to share how they arrived at this path of conscious leadership?
Yeah, I can say for myself that I had reached a point a long time ago where I was just tired of my life just going up and down, and we call that a pendulum swing. Everything would be really good, and it'd be really bad, it'd be really good. And over time, years of being trained by Mark and creative self-mastery and being a part of the team, I started realizing the importance of how I was showing up to the world. And Mark and I started by making sure that I was showing up to my career and the people that were, that depended on me and my job, and to use that environment to sharpen my skills, to be more bulletproof, and to really serve the culture of what we were creating, to bring departments together, for where inside of those organizations, people tend to, throw stones at each other, be separate to one another, fight to get what they want. We work to bring everyone together and to have these really healthy outcomes. and it started teaching me quite a bit and preparing me for my responsibility as a leader with my family and other areas of my life, including my own health. And that's kind of how I arrived to it. I realized that I was always being a leader. Every moment was a teachable moment, and it was my responsibility to demonstrate that or show up that way and to really master my thoughts and feelings so that I could have the outcomes that I wanted.
Amazing.
Mine's similar to Stan's, but when you asked that question, what kind of came back to me was, my childhood and what led me down to the path of conscious leadership. Started off as more of just a general leadership journey around knowing who I am and my self-expression, and being absolutely terrified of expressing myself in using my will to experience the things that I wanted to in life, to use my voice to bring change, to communicate. All of that stuff is I lived a proportion of my life with huge amounts of insecurity and self-doubt. And about 14 years ago, I went through a period of like mental health challenges because I had just over-identified with my thoughts and feelings, with my insecurity and my self-doubt, to the point where it caused a deep sort of mental health decline. And then I had to really, on my own, kind of get myself out of that. And I kind of discovered that I had to face parts of me that I didn't want to face. I had to face my weaknesses, my vulnerabilities, and I still do to this day, as part of the conscious leadership path. And then I kind of realized that after I had kind of been through the episode, I kind of had wisdom that I had kind of gained, and I always had this knack, this experience where people will come to me and tell me the deepest, darkest secrets, and I was like, why are you telling me this stuff? And then after I had this episode, this mental health sort of bout of challenges, a few people close to me in my life decided to just approach me and ask for guidance, for some wisdom, for some real sort of deep human challenges that they were having, either whether it was their career, what they thought about themselves, how they saw themselves. And then from there, I had those conversations, and I saw like just the impact the conversations had with those people that I cared about and I loved. And I was like, look, I want to see if I can help people like this, like for the rest of my life. And then I went what started off as a personal development journey, and I read the usual stuff. There's so many books out there, but where I ended up, and I joined some communities and all that sort of stuff, I ended up meeting Mark. And then that's where, we started the work of personal leadership through his education, his frameworks, his structure called Create Self-Mastery. And then what started off as personal development transformed and evolved in what we're doing now, what we're talking about now, which is personal leadership. It's like considerably a level up. So it's completely different. It's not about just being better and just improving productivity and the sort of conventions of making yourself better. This is about becoming extremely powerful as a human being, so you can lead yourself and then lead others. And you can walk past, for me, it's been personally about walking past my own insecurities, my doubts, the vulnerabilities, being able to comprehend that, be compassionate towards myself, and be a warrior for my own truth and that of others. So that's kind of been my path to conscious leadership.
It's interesting.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry, Taylor. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mihir. The four of us have never really had this conversation, but I was reading something the other day, and it was saying that, leadership is born out of people who have overcome adversities. They go through their own, dark night of the soul. They come out stronger. They come out, better for having had the experience. But something about that shifts them into service. And every person in this room has taken a vow of service. And that sounds very, spiritual. Yeah, I mean, we just pledged when we came into this group, everyday conscious leadership. Actually, when we came into CSM, Creative Self Mastery, we all chose to take a vow of service, meaning that we show up in service to ourselves, other people, and the planet. When we say ourselves, we don't mean to our selfish agendas. We mean to our true selves, our higher selves, our heart-based selves. And so we've all taken that vow of service. We've all also been through the dark night of the soul and come out the other side. And I think that when my mother used to say, adversity builds character. And I think that's true. Adversity does build character, and when you come through through a certain amount or a certain type of adversity, for some people, adversity is going to build a character that is, that feels powerless, incapable, unloved. For other people, adversity builds, coming through it, builds a sense of being powerful, being capable, being confident, and having abundance, having resources to share. Because I think you start to make good use of your resources when you're facing adversity. You become more aware of what's working in your life. If you're working to be a conscious leader, or if you're working to be to lead yourself in your personal journey. So yeah, it was interesting that I heard everybody kind of talk about adversity, and I just remembered that that there is a correlation between going through some really difficult uh, times in your life, coming out the other side as a better version of yourself, and most people that do that go into service.
Yeah, awesome. That's can you hear me actually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's yeah. I mean, I would add that just from my own, when I met these guys last year, I hadn't started on my path of conscious leadership yet, and I would agree with Mark, like it came from a place of being in adversity, where I had many roles and many jobs, and I would make all the success for myself, but then I was just never somehow content with it, and never happy, and then I would sort of like move on to the next thing or almost destroy what I had created. And so that's why for me, it's an act of service to not do that anymore, and to actually continue to give the world, use my gifts to give the world whatever is coming out of me and through me, similar to like this show. And so that's what led me on the path personally. Yeah. So thank you, Martina Pribish. I hope we answered your questions. There will be more on the horses later, like Mark said.
It's good.
Yeah. And also a quick shout out to Mohammed Abuzaid. He wrote me a DM, and he was quite happy with the show last week. And so we wanted to just say hello. Yeah.
Thanks.
He was
Yeah,
hoping there
Mohammed.
would be more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, there will be.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I've actually prepared a few questions here for Mark, Stanley, and Mahir, and I'll probably add in my own things. But maybe some of you who are watching today, you saw there's been a bit of promotion that we made to invite you to come join us today for this conversation. And we've been talking about, kind of our version of the I Have a Dream speech. And so, yeah, I've put together, I saw what Mark and Stanley and Mahir all came up with for their version. And yeah, I'm going to start with Stanley. So in his version, in his post, he talked about eradicating mental illness completely. And I want to hear more about that, Stanley.
Yeah.
What is about that dream? Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, for me, it comes from a bit of negative vision, unfortunately. I grew up with a mother that was mentally ill and is still mentally ill. We're actually in the process. We're in our final stage with her. And to grow up in an environment with someone who was bipolar and would swing back and forth from one emotion to the next was a very tough thing to process and to deal with. Like what Mark was saying, we go through this darkness, and it was dark. It was very difficult to watch what we had to digest over a long period of time. And I used to sit there and imagine, man, wouldn't it be nice to be in a world where we figured out how to like really eradicate a lot of mental illness in the world, and so we can be present and happy and joyful and empowered instead of just ripping things apart, ripping ourselves apart. And so a big part of what you're asking me comes from that perspective.
Okay, thanks. I was just seeing that too because I had a second question for here where you wrote like in your dream, your pain and suffering doesn't go in vain. So you're in
Yeah.
service to others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want to
Because
say a little more about that?
yeah, I mean, when you're sitting there watching someone that you should be able to depend on, someone who teaches you love and worth, and they're just destroying themselves, like it brought my own pain, it brought my own suffering. I became very selfish. I started actually behaving a lot like my mother. It was all about me and the attention I could get or manipulating people. And as I learned what I was doing, and I was in the wrong perspective because that's what I was taught, and I had a choice, and I started to have more awareness around what I was doing. My health, my businesses, everything across the board, I was able to rise up and have a much better outcome because I was clearing out my bullshit. I was clearing out my mind. And Mark was instrumental in helping me figure a lot of that stuff out. So I didn't have to suffer any more than I needed to. Because I would set myself up for failure. I would come in trying to rescue my mother, only to be, kicked to the curb, let down, and constantly in this nasty cycle where I would beat myself up relentlessly, and it created a lot of health issues. And so I don't want that to go in vain. I want people to learn from what I've learned from, and hopefully, one or two people in the world can benefit from my story and what I've gone through. That they can move into a better place in their life, knowing that there's an answer. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. And I'm sure the people like that work for you and stuff, they're benefiting from that, right? They're being
Yeah.
served.
Yeah, across the board, because I vowed in a service pledge, like Mark said, and everywhere I go, everything I do, I try to be in service as much as possible and to be that light to everyone when I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I just want to speak to Stanley's story because I've been witnessing it. I've been by his side as Mark has been supporting him because we've been working together for nearly 5 years now. And what's really powerful and astounding around the work that Mark and Stanley did together around in the face of Stanley's mum's addiction was, this is someone who is consciously choosing to destroy themselves. And that's not very easy for anyone to comprehend. It can make you and bring out the worst of you. And it's very easy for you to want to quit and have a really defeatist view and a victim sort of perspective of life. But the work that both these gentlemen did together when Mark served him to see that, look, there is still a much more powerful outcome. There is a way, even in the face of that level of pain and victimization and dysfunction, that you can still have powerful outcomes that are not only going to make you absolve your own pain and vindicate yourself, but also you can raise your level of love and compassion even for people who are still consciously choosing their own suffering. And it doesn't have to stop you from living the type of life that you want to live and having the fullest expression, despite if someone that you love so dearly is destroying themselves. This is the type of work that I know that people who we are calling out at Everyday Consciously, we know they're facing that sort of stuff. But there's what we're here to do and what we're presenting is there's a powerful structure that can hold you and serve you and actually bringing out the best in the face of any challenge, any obstacle. You can have that, but you can also have be empowered and be a leader in that, but also have the life that you absolutely want. And that's kind of what was really amazing around Stanley's example. It was truly it was a huge demonstration of mastery and amazing leadership. So I'm glad you kind of mentioned this, and this is your mission,
Well, it was easy for me to make it mean something about me. The story that we eradicated in my mind was that my mother didn't love me enough to stop being a drug addict. And Mark was like, she's always going to be a drug addict, man. You need to start accepting that and not let it get in the way of the relationship you want to have, and to learn to master my emotions in front of somebody who wanted to run everybody off and prove how unlovable she really was. I ended up not having those outcomes anymore. So.
Wow. Amazing. Thanks, Stanley. And here, actually, my questions are a little bit already tied to what you were saying. So I'll go with you next, and then we'll go to Mark.
You can turn your volume up a little here.
Sorry?
Can you turn your volume up a little?
Turn my volume up. Yes, I can. Let me know. Is this better?
Is
this better?
All
That sounds
right,
better.
let me
Yeah.
ask him the question.
Yeah. Yes.
That was better.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you dropped a video and
Yes.
you were talking about everyday conscious leadership is about the real leaders that no one knows about. And my question is, who are these real leaders that no one knows about, and why don't we know about them, or why don't we know about them, and why do they struggle, or have they not yet stepped into their power, or people don't see them? I hope that makes sense.
No, thank you. My journey has been, I think there's a select few people who naturally who gravitate towards supporting others and just leading them and supporting them and moving the energy. They're not trying to be authoritarian. They're not trying to dominate or to control or anything. They genuinely care about a select, either it's their family or their communities or the teams where they work. And it's, in the context of that team, they can do an amazing job. But if they're not at the top of say there's a hierarchy and they have senior management, whatever, I feel that they still have, I faced a lot of insecurity around using my voice to communicate my disagreements, my disapproval of certain decisions that others had made who are in places of authority above me. And it's really scary for people who are afraid of retribution or punishment. Like, that's how it was for me. I was really scared of the repercussions. If I use my voice, it could mean I could get fired, I could get rejected, or I would lose the opportunity. And I think a lot of leaders are doing amazing work, but they just might feel a little fearful in the idea that, if I use my voice, it could mean there could be consequences. And I want, what I really want is for them to feel absolutely sort of empowered and safe within themselves, that, look, me speaking my truth, whether it quote unquote kills me or not, is the most powerful thing that I can do. And that's a very scary experience. It's a very scary thought. For me, it was in my imagination. But the thing was, what I came to, the conclusions that I arrived to, and the work that I've done over the last sort of 10 years, and the work, more recently with Mark and Stan and everyone at Career Self Mastery, is no matter what happens, we have to speak up. We have to address any conflicts. We have to be able to communicate powerfully. We have to be very clear on the outcomes that we want. And we have to be, the thing is, I think the secret sauce for me, when I was like, I realized that if I'm gonna really be the type of leader I want to be, I have to do it in the name of service. So if I say something, if I mention something, if I have a conversation, it's all designed not to be for me to be right or to prove anyone wrong. It's like, no, this is I'm having this communication, I'm having this dialogue so I can move the energy to the best possible direction for me, the people I work with, and for the people that who are above me or senior management and stuff like that. Anyone. So even with clients, like, there's sometimes I feel I don't want to say something because it could really trigger them, or they may feel like, but every time, what I've learned is when I speak my truth, when I serve that person with my truth, they're liberated from their own BS. And then things open up, that we just blow everything wide open, and then the energy can start moving again, and we can get back into flow. So that's hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm still wondering why these leaders why we don't know who they are. Because they're not using their voice? Okay.
Yeah. Look, it's scary. It's, if you don't have a good relationship with, or you've had experiences in your life where when you've used your voice, you've been denied, you've been, told off, or you've been punished, or there's been consequences, adverse consequences, and you've been made out to be wrong. It's a scary thing to raise your head above the parapet and say, I think we should do something differently. And then, because other people have their own agenda and whatever, that doesn't mean it won't happen. But if we can get back up again and then just fight our corner. Now, I don't want to get adversarial, but we have to be ability to, if we're choosing service, we have to be like, look, the truth is all that matters. And, what I'm inviting anyone that is part of, the work that I do, the work that we do at the ECL is, look, strengthen your ability to use your voice to serve and to move the energy to the best possible direction for all, and that means to the direction of truth, whatever that might be at any given moment. And it's an ongoing thing, and it's a perpetual mastery that I want these leaders to be part of. Does that
Awesome.
answer your question, Taylor?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so we know a lot more now about Mahir and Stanley's I Have a Dream, and Mark also wrote about his dream, but he left us a little bit on a cliffhanger. He said that something was missing. And so my question to you, Mark, is what was missing, or what was, and what do you have now that was missing from your creation of your dream?
Well, I think this is kind of a two-part question, or two-part answer, actually. So my big overall dream is, I think, probably about 15 years ago now. Mike and I were coming home from a night out in London. We used to live in London. And I remember we were walking through the park, and we came out the other end of the park, and I just stopped and I said, I'm going to dedicate my life to elevating the consciousness of the planet. And he looked at me and went, good. What does that look like?
That's romantic.
All right. I have no fucking clue what it looks like, but I'm telling you, that's what I'm doing. So 15 years ago, I made a commitment to elevate the consciousness of the planet, and I've been doing that ever since. It started with a group, with a company called Creative Self-Mastery, and where we taught personal development in the beginning, which then drifted into personal leadership, and then from there, it's grown into the everyday conscious leadership movement. So that is, everyday conscious leadership is a movement we're trying to get established internationally. We have obviously Berlin, London, Asheville, North Carolina, Tampa. We're working on Paris and Warsaw as well. We're looking for leaders, for people who will come in and become hub captains. You don't have to be a leader. You don't have to be a coach. You just have to have a genuine desire to serve us in creating a hub in your area, and then working with us to create the hub in the way you would like it to be. Each hub is individual to the hub captain. However, we do global events, and when we do those, we do them together. So we have a global event coming up on August 5th on the subject of service. And that will be a live event in each hub. And we will have a speaker, probably be us this time around. But I will be speaking in Asheville, Stan will be speaking in Tampa, here in London, Taylor in Berlin, and we'll all be speaking on the subject of service. At the end of that, we'll have 4 different recordings of service that will go to our YouTube channel. And as the hubs expand, every time we do a global event, then we will have more in the way of content that will be recorded and put on the YouTube channel. So if we were to have 10 hubs, then when we did that event, we would have 10 recordings to put in onto the YouTube channel. So you could basically hear multiple conversations about any given subject when we do a global event. So if you're interested in becoming a hub captain, you should definitely reach out to myself or to anybody on this panel and let them know. The creative self-mastery still exists, and under its banner is the everyday conscious leadership. And then if you want to talk to the second part of my answer, my dream. So my big kind of purpose dream to elevate the consciousness of the planet. Okay, guys, if you're not there yet, you don't have a big, dream, then that's all right. Not everybody has ever, been encouraged to sit down and think about what their purpose is. And even if they have, they may not have been able to come to, a decision about what that is. However, every one of us has a dream that we're ignoring. And that's what I really wanted to talk about because, yeah, was I willing to step up and become a leader? Yes. Was I willing to serve? Yes. Was I willing to take all of my history, all of my adversity, put it behind me, and use only what it taught me, not my thoughts and feelings about it, but what it taught me to elevate the consciousness of the planet? Yes. I was willing to do all of those things. Was I willing to give myself my dream? Not really, because I always had one thing that I knew I wanted ever since I was a little kid, but just refused to ever talk about or to ever even muse on in my own head. I never daydreamed about it or anything. Um, the moment I would start to think about this, I would shut it down because I didn't have, I wasn't significant enough to ask for what I wanted. I felt we didn't have the resources for the things I wanted. What am I talking about? Horses. When I was a little kid, I wanted horses. Always wanted horses, right? Always, always, always. My mother was pregnant with me, taking riding lessons when she had to stop taking lessons when she found out she was pregnant with me. She would then bring me to the stable and they would put me on the horses and walk me around the paddock when I was a little kid. But I always thought that was very expensive, so I never asked my mother to do it on a regular basis because I just was too insignificant. My needs weren't enough. Yeah. And so I never asked for what I wanted. And then as I got older, I learned to just stifle that and push it down and just ignore it. So every time I thought about horses, just nope, that's ridiculous. You're too poor. You don't have the land, you don't have the money, no resources for any of this. Forget it. And then a few years ago, I had a life-altering event, let's call it. I don't live in my history, so what happened isn't important. It was enough to make me realize that if I didn't start asking for what I wanted in the world, if I didn't ask myself what dreams I was denying, I was very likely going to die without having lived my dreams.
Wow.
So I started asking myself what dreams what dreams were I denying? Was I denying? And the answer was really obvious. It's the horses, right? And I say to my husband, I gotta have horses. And he's like, there is no fucking way on God's green earth. No horses, no how, no way, never. Yeah. We were sitting in our friend's living room when he said that. I have witnesses, right? But I said, fine, but you can't keep me from taking lessons. So he said, no, I can't keep you from taking lessons. And I wouldn't. Go take lessons. That sounds wonderful compromise, right? So I did. I started taking lessons, and I instantly realized that I had unlocked a part of myself that had been, just tucked away for my entire life. And I started to realize that I had not only an affinity for horses, but a way with them as well. I had a way I could communicate quite easily with them, and I could get what I wanted. There was talk at the stables about horse whisperer. Yeah, I don't know about horse whisperer. I've met some really great horse people. Over the years, I don't hold myself in their caliber. However, the connection was undeniable. What happened? It just broke my heart wide open. I gave myself something I've been denying myself my entire life, and it broke my heart wide open. It was like I had a protective shell over my heart that just shattered. And from that point on, I knew like horses had to be part of everything I do. And to the point where my husband was like, well, you're a lot less of an asshole now. So maybe you should have a horse or two to keep you from being as much of an asshole as you were. No, I mean, we joke about it, but the reality is there was a certain bitterness. My heart was harder because I was denying myself what was true for me. I was, denying myself the dreams. I wouldn't even let myself dare to dream it, But what's happened since, here it is 5 years later. We've got we've got 4 horses. They're all rescues. We've been rescuing and rehabilitating horses now for 4 years. Um, we are a registered sanctuary, and we take the horses that can go through the program, that go through the rehab, that are capable of working with humans. We don't let anybody ride them or anything like that. Once they come here, they have a very relaxed life, but they do groundwork with humans in leadership trainings. And they teach humans how to be better versions of themselves, because the thing that that was unlocking me with the horses unlocks everybody with horses. They are the perfect mirror. They can communicate to you exactly what you're feeling, and they do. And so we use them to mirror what people are feeling, and to help them understand that what your thoughts and feelings are driving your behavior. And if those thoughts and feelings aren't consciously driven, then they're being unconsciously driven by your traumas, by your core beliefs, and so your fears, and so we try to make that a bit more conscious thing that's driven by intuition, by heart-based thinking, and by a genuine desire to serve and to lead that energy to a specific outcome that benefits everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mark. And hopefully, Martina, you've got your horse full. Or yeah, I think that landed how I wanted it to. Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's also a great landing point for us to end for today as well. We've gone a little bit over time, which I think was necessary. So yeah, thank you all again, Mark, Mahir, Stanley, for coming today. We'll be back this time next week as well. Like Mark said, oh, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add, get in touch with us at Everyday Conscious Leadership. Yeah.
Yes, that's where I was going, but please.
Yeah. No, sorry. I was like, come on, guys, get in touch. Sign up for Hub Captains. Ask more questions. Get in touch with us. Taylor's a great organizer, and she'll be able to answer a lot of your questions for you. But if you have any specific questions about horses or anything like that, and what we do with the horses, feel free to reach out to me as well, or anybody on the panel. Taylor, now, sorry,
Yes.
didn't mean
No, but
to.
thank you. It's helpful. Because yeah, actually this past weekend here in Berlin, we had a really big hike. It was just yesterday, actually. I feel like it's a few days ago already. And we had a great time. It was the kickoff meetup for ECL Berlin. And there's the next hike is on July 14th. And like Marcus said, our first global event is happening on August 5th. So in Tampa and in London, in Berlin and in Nashville. And we'll be talking more about that in the next couple of weeks when we come live as well. But for sure, Mark is totally correct. Write any of us, DM any of us.